Welcome to the Card Text, an unofficial podcast about Marvel Champions at the LCG. We cover rules discussions regarding gameplay and aim to help fans of the game better understand the inner workings of their favorite Marvel card game. Welcome to the Card Text. This is episode 15, another Card Takes episode, in which we each pick a card from the recently announced Marvel Champions release and give our thoughts on them. This episode we'll be discussing Spider and Spider Hero Pack, which comes with the protection aspect and the Iron Spider's Sinister 6 modular set. But first, kind of a breaking news that broke today, I guess. It was revealed today by Michael Boggs, Marvel Champions co-designer, that he is leaving FFG today, May 6th. He'll be moving to be closer with his family. That's sad to see him go, but we wish him best of luck. Wish him and his family all the best. Boggs has actually been with FFG Asmodee since back in the Netrunner days. And the new hire on the team is going to be Mr. Tony Fanchi. He'll be taking over that co-designer slot for Champions.
Yeah, see, he posted to the main Marvel Champions group in Facebook. And yeah, I commented on there, and it's kind of sad to see him go, but I think from what he said in his post, he's moving on for good reasons, and yeah, he's definitely had an impact on the game, and because of the long design cycles, we can expect to see more of his work for probably the next couple of years. So yeah, it's not like we're just going to stop getting Michael Boggs designs tomorrow.
So back to the topic at hand here. So we wanted to start a bit differently this episode because of the unique nature of Spider's identity cards. We wanted to explain a bit about those identity cards. So Penny Parker is the character from the comics, and in the comics she is linked with this technology called Spider. It's a suit. And so instead of a normal double-sided identity, she has two different double-sided identities. One of those identities has the alter ego, Penny Parker, on one side, and the permanent upgrade titled Spider on the other side of her alter ego. The other identity card has the hero on one side, the Spider suit, and the permanent support also titled Spider suit on the other side of the hero. So what do they do? How do they function differently from the other identities? So thematically, I think what it represents is you kind of jumping into the suit, and I think that works well. But yeah, once you flip Penny's alter ego, her Spider upgrade flips the suit support to its active side, its hero side, and you move cards or counters kind of that are attached to your identity to the Spider suit. And in the other case, when you flip your hero Spider suit to the support suit, you move attachments from the Spider upgrade to the support card. So whichever way you go, it seems to move kind of attachments and counters and stuff to the hero. And this effectively means that some attachments remain on the support card and they don't actually affect Penny, it looks like. And there's this bonus effect that you get because the cards are individual, they're separate. Because her hero and alter ego cards are different cards, if you use a basic power on either of those cards, it exhausts, but the other card is still ready. For example, if you thwart with your hero Spider suit and flip back to Penny, Penny will still be ready because she is not the same physical card as Spider suit and doesn't exhaust when your hero does. Moving on, let's go straight to the cards. So the first card, Theorel, you want to go first?
So the card that I picked is from the protection aspect that she comes with. It's a zero-cost event Repurpose, which has as a skill, as a hero action, discard a tech upgrade you control, ready your hero, and choose thwart, attack, or defense. Until the end of the round, your hero gets plus X to the chosen power, where X is equal to the upgrade's printed cost. That's an energy resource. I just find it a fascinating card. It's a very cheap ready, being a zero-cost event, except for that it requires you to discard an upgrade, which most of the tech upgrades we have, many of the tech upgrades we have uses, which means they'll discard automatically when they run out of counters. There's a little bit of interesting timings going on there. But there are also tech upgrades that don't, and you can discard those too to ready your hero and get extra usage out of them. And you get to have this interesting interplay with, if you're discarding an expensive upgrade, you get a significant boost to one of your hero abilities until the end of the round. So it's definitely, I think it's a very interesting card in terms of the things that it will open up that you might decide to use it with, the ways in which it'll interact with heroes that have tech upgrades built in, like Rocket or Iron Man or War Machine or any of these heroes. War Machines are tech. Anyways, all these heroes with tech upgrades that you can use this with, and it's a really interesting ability to me.
Yeah, the more expensive the upgrade, the bigger the boost. But he doesn't have anything that he wants to discard, does he? Like the helmet, for sure, you don't want to discard, right?
Yes, but you might be willing to discard the gauntlets for a ready in a one.
Yeah, so those maybe depending on your playstyle. I think the one that I have heard mentioned the most for this is Captain Marvel's helmet. The 2 cost finally gives that helmet a use. I think you want to target more maybe some basic cards. I know there's a couple of basic cards.
There's the pistols that are basic tech upgrades uses, but they're like 1 damage per use. So you can get a couple damage and then a ready out of them. The plasma pistols, that's what they're called. It's interesting in a multiplayer or multi-aspect hero with, say, the various leadership upgrades that are tech. There's a lot of these scenarios, a lot of the cards that have come up previously with Iron Man builds, because of course he's always cared about tech upgrades, but they come in here again in an interesting way. So certainly having someone throw a upgrade on one of your allies, use that ally, they're almost dead, you turn their tech upgrade into a ready and a +1, and then use them to jump block. It makes for some very interesting opportunities for interplay between multiple players.
Yeah, in protection itself, you don't have many options. Electrostatic armor, which I think one where you might want to build around the card is the max 1 per player tech upgrades, and because when I build with those, I will put 1 copy in, because once you get one in play, it's never leaving play unless you get something that discards it. And then a second or third copy is just a resource. But in this case, you run 2 or maybe even 3 so that you can discard it to repurpose when you've got the second copy in your hand. It, of course, means you have to get the event and the second copy in your hand at the same time, unless you're running something that allows you to play events from other places or fetch them or that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's got some interesting potential.
Actually, now that you said that, one of the things I heard people complain about for Rocket Raccoon is you can't really discard his upgrades, right? Because they don't have uses once the uses are all gone, once his charges are all gone.
Yeah, and you end up having to use his, can't remember what it's called, his ability, but it's on his alter ego side, isn't it?
Tinker, his tinkering ability.
So that seems like an answer for that problem.
Yeah.
I haven't personally ever played Rocket Protection because Rocket Protection didn't seem to have much going for it. But this card alone makes me think, oh, Rocket Protection's an interesting deck.
Yeah, I'd love to see this kind of a tech archetype kind of manifest. Hopefully, sometime soon. That would be great. Move on to the next card.
I do just have one this time. I'm going to go with, let me find it, because I need to remember the text. I'm going to go with Unshakable. 1 cost upgrade, condition and superpower traded, Play only if your identity has at least 14 printed hit points. Your identity gains steady, and it then explains steady. It has a big picture of Hulk on it, and I think he is the target use for this card. There are, of course, other heroes with 14 or more printed hit points, but yeah, Hulk having steady makes him potentially not a lot better, but definitely better. And the fact that it's a superpower means you can defocus it into play for free. So yeah, as soon as I get the pack, I will be building a Hulk deck with Unshakable in it, because I think it's going to make quite a difference.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Not having or being susceptible to stunned was one of his big problems. I mean, the hand size and everything else. But this is definitely going to give him an advantage, and it has the physical resource, which is helpful. And like you said, super power, so you can pay for it with depth focus, which he also likes in certain builds. But yeah, it's clear that this is intended to be something that goes in Hulk and all the other really high hit point heroes. But it's pretty straightforward. You just throw it in the heroes that have high hit points and probably also high attack.
Yeah, and it's basic, so it doesn't matter what aspect you're building for.
It's cheap, so you can actually put it out, even though these heroes have small hand sizes.
Yeah, even if you don't get your def focus out, one cost is not that much of a problem for even Hulk.
Even Hulk can play it. It really just does. It does go well in a lot of those. Hulk, pretty well in She-Hulk and Thor. They'll appreciate the boost.
You didn't mention it when we talked about Penny, but her printed hit points are 14 as well. Hence it being in her precon.
Well, I guess it's time for me to pick a card. I think actually I'm going to pick two, so I can say something about these cards. Because I neglected to pick one earlier, so now I'm kind of doing this on the fly. So my two cards, sure, we'll just go with the super controversial ones, and this one in particular because I want to complain about interrupts. Spider-Man Noir, 3-cost ally, X for his thwart value and 1 consequential, X for his attack value, 1 consequential, 3 hit points. He's a web warrior. Card reads X is equal to the number of face-down cards attached to Spider-Man Noir. In his response, after you resolve a treachery, if you control another web warrior card, attach that treachery face down here to a maximum of 3. He's got a energy resource. He's a protection ally. Should I just mention both cards? Might as well, right? And the card he is purported to work with, Spider Tingle, 1 cost protection upgrade, superpower traded, and with the interrupt, when you would reveal an encounter card, deal 1 damage to a web warrior character you control. If that card is a treachery, cancel its when revealed effects and discard Spider Tingle. It's got a mental resource. They do work together. It seems like a good combo, right? You cancel treachery and maybe you get to put it under Spider-Man Noir, so you don't have to resolve it, but you get the buff to Spider-Man Noir for later, and you get to hold on to that, horrible treachery. If these cards do indeed work together in the combo that the article states, and it's nice to see that protection is doing a lot more of this cancel stuff, even though sometimes cancels can be kind of frowned upon because they're kind of making you skip parts of the game. I still like the kind of control aspect there, and there's some treacheries you definitely don't want to see, like what's the under fire where you have to reveal like a couple. Canceling that one revealed could be helpful.
Shadow of the Past.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You could get each of the expert treacheries, get them all stored under Spider-Man Noir, and then it's like you're playing standard.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I like Spider Tingle. I like assuming that the interrupt works the way that it seems like it's supposed to. That if you trigger it before you reveal the card, and then if it's a treachery, you cancel it and discard Spider Tingle. Cancel the when revealed. I think in terms of cancels, that's a pretty good fun to have because you're having to pay a cost to use it, to try to use it, and you don't know if it's going to work or not. So in terms of contrasted with something where you say grappling hook from Black Widow, where you know what the treachery is and you're canceling it because it's the bad treachery that you don't want to see. This is a lot more taking a chance on it. You do it when you just feel like, no, I really couldn't handle it. If I flip over an assault, if I flip over a minion or a side scheme, that's fine. But if I flip over an assault or an advance, I lose. So I'm gonna trigger the spider tingle.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects of it. That's one of the aspects of it that jumped out at I think me and Scott, because we discussed it as soon as it came out in the article. Is that it's one of the cards, or seemingly one of the only cards that allows you to kind of gamble. Like, you don't know what the card is, and once you flip it over, you see whether or not that it was worth the cost of that one damage. But it's actually really good in Spider-Ham, who wants that extra damage to get his two encounters.
I think it fits nicely in protection with several of these, heal 2 damage and do a thing cards. The heal 2 damage and ready card, or even momentum shift. You have to have damage to be able to use them. And sometimes, every now and again it happens when you're playing protection and you're just like, oh wow, I'm defending so well that I'm not taking any damage. And these heal cards I ran aren't working. So
yeah, that can definitely happen with any web warrior that has, except for Spider-Man, any web warrior that has 3 defense, right? So Ghost Spider in particular can be really hard for her to take any damage. And like you said, it works with the one that heals you.
momentum shift, and then the other one, which I couldn't think of the name of. What doesn't kill me?
Yeah, those two. Great to use. Having to use your health is kind of a resource there. Hopefully that will also be fleshed out a bit more. Any thoughts on those 2 cards, Scott?
Yeah, it also spider tingle. It works well with things like energy barrier, where you can do something when you take damage. So you cancel. Well, you trigger spider tingle, reflect the damage onto an enemy, and then if it's a treachery, you cancel the when revealed. And yeah, I'm like 90% certain that it does work with Spider-Man Noir, which if you're doing that, you then get the benefit of sticking it under him.
It shouldn't work with energy barrier though, right? Because you're canceling the cost.
Oh, does energy barrier cancel?
It prevents the damage.
Yes, it does prevent it. Yes, I forgot that.
But it is an alternative way to trigger your energy barrier if you need to, and there's a treachery out. That's not bad.
In fact, it is a little bit counterproductive with force field generator that comes in the same pack, because if you have your force field generator out, you can't trigger spider tingle.
Yes, because that's forced.
We haven't talked about force field generator, but it's a interrupt in the pack.
I see. No, that's an important thing to mention. Yeah, because it's forced, it will block the spider tingle. Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of my planned combos ruined. Thanks, guys.
No problem. That's what we're here for, right? That's why we have these rules discussion forums, so that we can ruin people's combos.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did the best I could with no preparation there. Sorry if it wasn't up to snuff, everybody. But we'll move on to the rule section. So which I have a list of ones that I think are more important, but do we want to get back to Theorel? You were mentioning the attachment card movements when you flip Penny. They seem to only move to the hero, no matter what you're flipping to. Did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just the questions that it raises of the one that most people immediately point to is something like Honorary Avenger, she'll lose a hit point if it goes that way. There's just a sense that I get, the sense that I got from it when I just first read the card is that it really seems like there, when I read the Spider card, the Penny Parker's card, and it said forced interrupt when you flip to this side, flip the Spider suit to its active side and attach this card to it, move all counters on this card and cards attached to this card, the Spider suit. I thought, oh, that makes sense. Anything that's on your identity, it needs to stay on your identity because you've changed forms. And so attachments and counters that are on your identity, they need to stay there. And then when you flip back and it said that, that you detach them all from Penny and move them onto this support, I was just kind of like, wait, what? What? How does that even work? Like, what cards are ever going to be attached to this Spider upgrade? And why would you move them to a support from an upgrade? They'll then be on a hero when you flip back to hero form. It's not like they're going to go back to the support, the upgrade, when you flip back either. So it's just kind of, it all seems very strange to me. It just was like, well,
I will say that it doesn't, for now anyway, it doesn't affect a whole lot of cards. There's not a whole lot of negative interactions there. It seems to be mainly restricted to the cards that specifically read attached to character, or cards that have an ability that references attached character. And the one that you mentioned, Honorary Avenger, and a few attachment and counter cards. But it is kind of beneficial, right? Because some of those can just end up on the support, and then if you're in your alter ego form, you don't really have to deal with the consequences of that.
I mean, the idea of all these attachments going onto the support, you think Frozen is one where you can't ready the attached character, and if it's on a support, that means it doesn't do anything, and that just seems strange to me.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes me feel like it's a typo. It's just like, this just seems like that's supposed to stay on a character.
But it doesn't. There is some loss of interaction there with some of the cards, but overall, I think it's not a huge deal for now, anyway. Any other things? Closing thoughts for that particular oddity?
I know, Scott, you were saying that you were having some trouble understanding how the identity worked. Did you have any?
Yeah, I think it's a bit clearer to me now. But yeah, I think so. When I got the article, when the article came out and I read it, I skimmed through the cards, which is what I normally do, and then I'll go back to ones that look interesting and read them a bit closer. And yeah, I went through and saw these 4 cards that all seem to be her identity, and it's just really confusing. I think it's going to be a lot easier when you've got the pack in your hands and you can sit with the cards in front of you and go, okay, this is the alter ego, and on the other side is the upgrade, and then you've got the hero, and how they interact when you flip from one to the other. But yeah, it was just like, I read the stuff on the upgrade and the support, and it was like, what? I just don't follow that. But I am one of those people that needs to do something to really properly understand it, and I think I kind of understand it now. But until I actually play her, I'm not gonna fully grok it.
I mean, I think it's definitely it's a different sort of interaction that's going to cause a lot of challenges in terms of how it works, especially seeing it digitally and not physically. I think makes it a lot harder to picture what it's going to look like. One other thing that's present is this, that put the spider suit into play as part of Penny Parker's setup, which of course means that it's got all of the problems of the Vision and Valkyrie and Spectrum stuff. does that mean that are you shuffling that card into your deck before it starts? Are you shuffling half of your identity into your deck and then you only actually put it into play when you're doing the last step of setup after you've mulliganed and everything? It's just weird. What happens if Ultron takes it? All those fun things. We've kind of had those conversations to death, but it's worth noting that it's here. It hasn't gone away.
Mm-hmm. And I just advise people just to set it aside and just wait until the setup comes and throw it in play when the setup comes. That's what I do with all the other cards.
That's what I do with all of those things. I mean, I just put them where they're supposed to be. Once I finish shuffling my deck, they're there.
Okay. So the next rules question. This is one I think is really important for people who are going to be picking up this pack and playing with her, because it did come up in some chat rooms, in some forums, etc. And that's, can you use Spider Suit's sync ratio resource ability for each interface upgrade, or like if you have two of these interface upgrades, can you trigger it twice to generate two resources, or is it only available to trigger once each time you need to spend or pay?
Yeah, so it is on the hero form side of the Spider Suit, and it reads resource, exhaust, and interface traded upgrade you control, cost arrow, generate that upgrade's resources. I think the answer to the question is yes, you can. There's no limit there. There's nothing restricting you to doing it once.
Right, so if you have as many as you have out, that's how many you can generate, right? I think some people were thinking that along the lines of that section in the Learn to Play. I don't know if they transferred over the RRG yet, but
technically the text is each copy of a triggered ability may be used once each time the situation described by its text occurs. And resource abilities ultimately don't have a situation described by their text under which they trigger.
people were applying that rule to this resource card, and it's funny because it also lumps in the resource trigger in that section. So yeah, people were applying it there and saying, "Oh, you can only use the one." So you would agree with that reading as well, Theo?
I agree with that. The restriction is specifically for triggering conditions.
Yeah, same page. All right.
They may differentiate in the RRG. Yeah, that's the text from the Learn to Play, which is where this rule is because it doesn't exist in the RRG.
So the next question that I got: do status cards move over to the hero support card when changing forms? Do those move back and forth? Because it doesn't seem to say on her upgrade nor her support anything about status cards and where or how those moves move, right?
Yes, I agree. It does not mention status cards. And
Is that because status cards are not attached?
I don't think they're attached. I mean, they're kind of. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's because they're not placed like under as you would an attachment. Kind of just on top.
it's interesting in that status cards, the first sentence under status cards in the RRG is status cards represent different states a character may find themselves in during the game. No, that's not. It's a description. It's not like the rules of it. Nowhere in the status cards rules does it say if a thing which used to be a character turns into not a character and had a status card on it, you have to discard the status card. It's definitely a kind of status cards are things that only apply to characters in terms of the ways in which they work. It doesn't mean they have to discard when you change forms. That doesn't mean that they have to stay either. We don't have a clear case of that. If they had to discard, though, then ejection protocol would be pretty terrible. So I would assume they don't, since it gives your identity a tough status card and then flips to alter ego form. So either Penny should be tough or the spider suit should be tough when you're in alter ego at that point.
So just practically, how would you handle that situation where you have whatever amount of status cards on you and you're flipping back and forth?
I think I would leave the status cards on the mech or the alter ego, according to whichever one had it. Because they're not mentioned, I would be pretty willing to switch them. I don't like, just because they don't mention it is the reason that I would leave it there unless I had other, some clear difference. Possible that instead of counters they meant statuses.
Well, I think the thing with status cards is they're not put on cards. So what it says is, as you said, Theo, status cards represent different states a character may find themselves in during the game. And then there's a paragraph with a couple of bullet points. On the first bullet point, a character cannot have more than one status card of each type at a time. So it's like the status card is not attached to the character. It's just something that the character has. And like if you look under stun or stunned, stun is a status that prevents a character from dealing damage to its next attack. If an ability stuns a character, give that character a stun status card. It's just give it to the character. So it's a bit like giving the villain a boost card. That boost card is not going to go away because you defeat the stage of the villain, or it's Green Goblin and he flips to Norman Osborn. That character still has that boost card, and for status cards, the character still has the status card. So I think it doesn't mention them because they don't work like that.
I think one of the big challenges with Spider and the Spider suit is that it's almost like they're two characters, but they are somehow merged into a single character on some level. They are much closer to two characters than your typical hero alter ego identity is, or that's clearly one character all along. So it's just a question of does the stunt status go from the hero to the alter ego because it's one?
He's associated with the character.
Right. The spider suit character. So it's just a question of what happens when the spider suit character becomes a spider suit support.
I think you have to think of Penny Parker and the spider suit as a single character.
A single character?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see going that way. I do think it would actually work cleaner. Just considering some of the social interactions, it does seem weird, odd interaction that for Penny to get confused and then go to your hero form and not be confused. Essentially, she would become confused and never be able to remove the status because she can't thwart. The spider suit can thwart. So it's, I don't know.
But I think, like you said, is like you read the rules for stunned, etc. And it's, as you said, it's just a description. It's not rules for these cards. That's why it comes into question. We don't really know how to handle it, and it's not intuitive. And the cards don't seem to explain that either. But yeah, practically it probably just affects the character, and we don't have to worry about how it moves, because it should be, if you're stunned, you're stunned. If you're confused, you're confused. If you're tough, you're tough. But it would be nice for some clarification.
Would. Maybe they'll have a word about it on the insert.
Do we want to move on to Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Tangle? So first off, Noir, with the response, after resolve of a treachery, if you control another Web Warrior card, attach that treachery face down here. So the question is, what does after you resolve a treachery mean?
Right, particularly if the treachery doesn't particularly if the treachery is canceled on any level.
Right. Is it still resolved if you cancel it? And I think one of the things that you had said when we discussed this, Theorel, is that you still resolve Surge even if you cancel like the when revealed section of a card. And Surge states that after you resolve a treachery, that's when you do the Surge card. So it stands to reason that it's still resolved even if you cancel the when revealed.
Otherwise, canceling the when revealed would cancel Surge because the timing never happens. Do you think that there are times when the timings that show up in the rules are not exactly the same definitionally as the timings that show up on cards? I don't want to abuse that terminology just because they both say after you resolve doesn't necessarily mean they're exactly the same. But I feel like it's be the same, and that's. I do think there are things that happen with a treachery even if the when revealed is canceled. Someone on the Discord was pointing out that you discard the treachery when the when revealed effects are canceled, and that's not something that the when revealed cancels generally say. They don't say so the when revealed effect and discard it. Like if you cancel the treachery entirely, such as with grappling hook or with spycraft, those all say to discard the treachery. It canceled the cancel the treachery, cancel the encounter card, and discard it. Which does lend some weight to the idea that maybe those ones didn't resolve at all.
But they're still revealed. And anytime you reveal, you also discard it. That's the process that you go through. So regardless, even if it didn't say that on grappling hook, etc., it would still discard because of the nature of that process. I think it's fair to say that we think that you can do it even if you cancel the one revealed on a card.
I think it is less clear if you cancel the effect of the card entirely.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm like 90% certain that the Spider Tingle Spider-Man Noir combo works, and for that reason, that if you're just cancelling the when revealed, you're not cancelling the entire card. Yeah, you're not cancelling the entire resolution of the card. I was trying to think, do we have a cancel that just cancels the entire thing?
Grappling hook?
Grappling hook is when you reveal a treachery, discard grappling hook, cancel the effect of that treachery, and discard it.
Yeah, but that's yeah. So even that, it's cancel the effects of the treachery. It's not cancel the treachery. So
they're always worded as cancel the effects of.
yeah, that's what I was wondering, whether we do have one that is just cancel the treachery. And
yeah, I've never seen
that. Yeah, I think if we got one that was worded like that, I think then you couldn't put it under Spider-Man Noir. We could also potentially get replacement effects that.
I think if you had a replacement effect for a treachery reveal, wouldn't reveal it at all, right?
Yeah. So there wouldn't be any resolution at all, and so it definitely couldn't go under.
So the thing that I wanted to bring up with Spider Tingle is that, yeah, is it before? Do you do it before the condition, or you do it when the condition happens? Is it before the flip, or when you flip? Because it seems to me that this is exactly like this. I used to believe that any triggering condition with a wood in it happens before the condition described, right, actually occurs, rather than when it happens. But now I'm looking at these triggering conditions, and I'm thinking Spider Tingle is pretty much the same timing as Black Widow. Even if the wood in there makes it trigger first before Black Widow would trigger, but it's kind of reading the same to me as Black Widow does. And really, the only thing that's kind of keeping me from maybe going with that is the ability itself. If that card is a treachery, then it sounds like you are gambling.
I mean, particularly if they wanted it to only trigger on treacheries, could have saved a lot of text by saying you would reveal a treachery. Because if you already know it's not a treachery, then the card has no effect. Then if it has no effect, you can't trigger it. If you don't know what the card is, then you're triggering a kind of conditional ability that may or may not fire once you discover the type of card that you are revealing. I think is allowed.
I guess my big issue with it is that you really have to like search for all these context clues with all these triggering conditions in order to figure out when you actually do them. And it's so difficult that any card you read from here until they finish printing cards is always going to be a question if it's, if the wording is slightly different or a little more different than your usual card. You have that question of, well, when do you actually do it?
I mean, I think that's where we would benefit greatly from a timing chart or a thing which actually discussed what timings they want to hang their triggers on. I mean, it's this. There is a back and forth between that because once you've defined them, then finding a new timing trigger is more work because you have to codify it into the rules. If you didn't already have that point in time where you wanted to trigger something. Especially if they're going to use wood and it's going to have actual timing distinction in terms of the game. Like something will have changed in the game between your wood and your not wood. Then I think that is something that they really should have in the rules. Because otherwise, you said we're stuck looking at context clues.
Yeah, for me, I think we need an entry for wood and describing exactly how that differs to just when something happens. So, yeah, when you reveal versus when you would reveal. I have a mental model of how that works. I don't know whether it's correct. It seems to fit with the way effects are written and how they appear to be intended to work. In that I very, very, very rarely come up against any issues. But yeah, I have no idea whether that mental model is correct or not.
Well, I think the entry that we have for wood it's not bad because I think what it really is telling you, I don't know if we have the entry somewhere, but I think what it really is telling you is that the interrupts with wood just have a higher priority, right?
So wood. The word wood is used to define the triggering condition of some interrupt abilities and establishes a higher timing priority for those abilities than interrupts to the same triggering condition without the word would. A bullet point, if an interrupt to a triggering condition that would occur changes the nature of that which is about to occur, such as through a replacement effect, no further interrupts to the original trigger may be used since the resolution of that trigger is no longer valid. And that has an example.
Okay. And yeah, like I was saying, with the Black Widow example, if you had Spider Tingle and Black Widow on the board and that triggering condition happened, you would have to trigger Spider Tingle before you trigger Black Widow just because of the wood, right? Does that seem like a fair reading?
That is what the rule says.
My kind of issue with that and why I want a better definition is it talks about timing priorities, and that doesn't match with my mental model of how it works, and it doesn't actually seem to match with the way the cards are written and how they operate. I can't remember which ruling it is, but there was a ruling we got a while ago that it implied that a when you would ability triggers before the triggering condition actually occurs. If you imagine the triggering condition being a moment in time, and then there's immediately before that moment in time and immediately after that moment in time. And when you would triggers immediately before, and when you do whatever triggers immediately after. And so yeah, that it's not about. It doesn't seem to actually be about priority, which is what the Wood rule says. It seems to be more about that very subtle timing difference between just before and just after.
Right. And one of the things I was going to say is that just the rulings that we've gotten on some interrupts have just been inconsistent. For example, if for followed is supposed to trigger before the triggering condition actually occurs. That's one of the rulings that I believe one of the developers gave. But for a card, the biggest example of this being inconsistent is Red Dagger. Red Dagger is when Red Dagger is defeated, do something. And that happens right when he's defeated, not before. Whereas in the followed ruling, he says all interrupts trigger before the thing actually happens. So that's a clear inconsistency there. And yeah, and it leads to questions like this and problems with understanding when to do these and how it all interacts in the game.
Yeah. What's the wording on followed?
Followed was the infamous response when card, but it's an interrupt now. I think it's when a side scheme or when attached side scheme is defeated or something like that.
That ruling on followed would imply that it should be when attached side scheme would be defeated.
I guess we'll close out. Okay, so that is our episode on the Spider preview pack. Spider comes with protection and the Iron Spider's Sinister 6 modular set. Not really sure when it should be out.
July.
Or at July. And it's going to be one of those double releases for July?
Yeah, July. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like based on, was it Ironheart's article? I think they mentioned it. It looks like they are moving to campaign box, then 2 months later, the first two, and then 2 months after that, the second two hero packs in the wave. Not really clear when scenario packs are going to fit in, or if we're even going to get those anymore.
Yeah, I do like the scenario packs a lot, so hopefully we'll still continue to get those. But thanks everybody for listening, and let us know what your pick for this hero pack is. Let us know what you think of it. All right, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Theorel, for joining me. Take care, guys.
Yeah, cheers.
You too.
We hope that was informative. Tune in for our next episode next month. Thanks to my distinguished colleagues, Theorel and Scott, for joining. And remember, when you would rather not read the rules reference, listen to the card text instead.